Welcome to the Unquiet Mind podcast. Hello, Samantha. I'm so happy that you are here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, it is. How's the weather where you are, by the way? I always ask
It's
people.
beautiful today. It's like 70 and sunny, but it's starting to get cold at night, and that's kind of, I don't know, a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I love 70s, and
Yeah.
that's kind of like my favorite time. The fall really is the favorite time of the year because it's not too hot. Like the summer was brutal.
Oh my
So,
God. Yeah,
yeah,
so bad.
for sure. So I wanted to have you on for so long. I've wanted to talk to you because I've been following you, and I'm like, oh my God, I need to talk to this woman. She's like a fitness guru and working out, and
Thank
I would feel bad because I'm like, I should be moving too. I should be doing something with my body right now. As long as I can move, I better move it or lose it, as they say.
Yeah.
But I am again, I'm just super happy that you're here, and I would love for you to share your story. So, would you mind sharing a bit about your MS journey?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And yeah, I'm very grateful to be here. So thank you so much. Um, so I was diagnosed with MS in 2005 when I was 19. Um, it kind of came on pretty suddenly. Like I was a college student at the time, so I was about as healthy as any college student is. And then like just one morning I woke up and it was the day of a football game and we were supposed to go and it was like 70 and it was in Ohio. Um, and I was just like sweating through all my clothes and I had like shorts and a t-shirt on. So I had really like bad body temperature regulation and then my like right hand just kind of became like useless and my face was numb and I started seeing double, like all within the span of 24 hours.
Wow.
So then I went to the ER and they thought I had a stroke for a while. And then once they did an MRI, they were like, oh no, you have MS.
Oh,
Um,
they
yeah,
diagnosed you right away?
yeah, right away. Because I mean, the spinal tap came back negative, but the lesions were characteristic of MS. So the first neurologist I saw diagnosed me right away. I had gone to two other MS specialists in Ohio at the time, and they both like thought I was depressed. One said I was depressed, and one said I partied too much. Um, But so I stuck with the MS diagnosis and I'm really glad I did because who knows what would have happened. But um it took like a good 6 to 8 months to like recover from that first relapse. And I started like treatment right away and it's like my 16-year anniversary is coming up in December.
Time flies, doesn't it?
It's insane. Yeah. No idea.
Well, can I ask you what was the first or DMT, disease modifying
Yeah.
therapy? What was the very first?
I started with Rebif,
Okay.
because you probably remember, like, at that time, there wasn't that
No,
many. Yeah, so it
no.
was just those 4 injectables. I started with Rebif, and I stuck with that for, like, probably longer than I should have, I think over a year. Because
Hmm.
part of me was just like, "Oh, well, I have this chronic disease, everyone's acting like it's a huge deal. Maybe I'm just gonna feel terrible, like, all the time, and this is normal." Um and then eventually, like, the leg pain and the feeling of having the flu just, like, never went away. Yeah, and so then I switched to Avonex. I think that was
Oh,
the next one, yeah.
ooh, yeah.
Yeah, and that one worked better.
Okay.
Um, and then, yeah, I got the flu, and had a relapse, and so then I switched to Copaxone, and then I've been on, like, 4 others since then.
Oh my gosh. I
Yeah.
started with Avonex,
Oh, really?
and the nurse came to my house to teach me how to inject myself. And he used an orange because it's similar. You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
the orange,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's so because it's similar to our skin. And so it goes in the muscle. And I was terrified. I remember like not knowing what was happening with my body at all. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it, whatever. Like as long as I'll be able to walk and talk and move about. Because I was 25 and at
Yeah,
the prime
you
of
were
my
young.
life. So you were
Yeah,
young, I was, and like you just want to like be normal. You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, so the nurse taught me, and it took me probably 8.5 hours because I'm sitting there with the needle
Yeah.
and like on the phone with my grandmother. And like at hour 7, she's like, if you don't inject yourself, I am driving. She lives in Ohio. She's like, I'm driving all the way down to DC to do it myself.
Aw. It
But
is,
my
yeah, it's
I'm
hard.
sorry, go ahead.
Well,
Yeah,
it's hard to inject. I was sorry to interrupt, but it's
yeah,
very hard.
it's a mind,
Yeah.
uh, uh, it screws with your mind. I don't want to like
Yeah.
start cursing, but no, it
Yeah,
is hard
right.
to inject. Yeah, so my hat goes off to you for like diving in at that age with those injectables and then feeling crappy.
Ugh, yeah. Yeah, with Rebif and the injectables, I was kind of like how you were, where it's like, whatever, I have to do fine. But yeah, there was something with Avonex. I don't know if it started to become like more normal at that time. And I don't know. I couldn't do it either. I had my husband, well, my boyfriend then, but husband now. Um, he would always do them because I would just sit there and he'd be like, let's go, like, come on. And it's like, no, I just can't. Like, can you just poke it?
Yeah,
Like, just
yeah.
do it.
It
Yeah.
does something to your mind because like you want to feel better, but you're doing something that hurts. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's kind of like this doesn't make sense.
Right. Yeah.
So, okay, so you were diagnosed at 19.
Yeah.
Was anybody else in your family diagnosed with MS, or did you know about anyone?
No, my mom thought like maybe she had a second cousin that had it.
Mhm.
Um, but it was also just like a very confusing time, especially when I was diagnosed like in the office. So my mom was like confused and thought he said like muscular dystrophy, and she just started bawling. And then my dad was like, yeah, not yelling, but like sternly being like, please stop. Like, let's hear what the doctor has to say. So it was just like a little chaotic because I couldn't just like, they're having reactions and they're your parents, and so you want to care about them. And then you're trying to listen to this doctor that's telling you like life changing info. Um, and it was just kind of a lot. I don't, yeah.
For sure. I think quite often when MSers are diagnosed, we are just like the individual that it's happening to. We don't think about everyone else. At least I didn't. I never thought like my dad's over here crying because then like that makes me want to cry right now thinking about it because he's like upset that this has happened because as parents they know like life a bit more than we
Yeah.
do, especially at that young
Right.
age, and so they see things like harder, I guess, than we would. I
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, their reactions were definitely like 100% valid. It was just also added to like the confusion at the time.
Sure.
Yeah, but
It,
yeah,
it's an adjustment. It's an adjustment for everybody. And
yeah,
bravo to your husband too, like first and or boyfriend at the time, and then turning into a husband because it's hard for people, dating in MS. That's a whole different topic, and a lot of people
yeah,
run.
yeah, totally. Yeah, it took me a long time to like figure out how I personally felt about MS because everyone else had was so like outward with how they felt about it that it kind of was hard to like establish my own opinion about it. But not like it took a good like I don't probably really long, like it took 10 years to kind of just like get to the point where it's like, no, I've been living like through what other people are telling me and I need to like figure out on my own like what this means and how to move forward. And yeah, it just took a really long time.
I am there with you. Took me 10 years. I was
Oh,
in
did it?
denial for like 10 years
Yeah.
because until I started having visible symptoms, that's when I like thought I never thought it was real. I know that sounds so crazy. I
No.
knew things were happening, but it didn't feel real until the visible aspect of MS started to like creep in, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Yeah, I could totally see that.
And like I have to say, I was very active. I was a runner, my whole life I was a soccer player, always into fitness and sports, and not for like the vanity of it all, but just because I liked how it made me feel.
Yeah.
So when MS affected, my walking, my gait was always off. And just when it affected like my overall stamina and not being weak, I was like so surprised, like, well, surprise is not even the word. I was devastated.
Yeah.
Um, so over the past, I would say year, maybe year or two, I've been watching you, and you have been such an inspiration for me because I'm like, I used to be there. I want to go back there.
Oh, thanks.
And I love that. I don't love that you have MS, number one, but I love that you have MS and that you kind of like take it by its horns and you're like, screw you, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And so my question is like, how did you get from age 19 to 10 years of like kind of ignoring it to like being the person, the Samantha that you are now, and into the world of fitness and health
Yeah.
and wellness? How did
Yeah.
that come to?
So I initially I got into nutrition like after I finished undergrad, and that got me just more thinking about how food and activity and stuff will affect the body. Um, and then what really like was transformative was fitness. I had started like working out more and working at a small studio, and um, I don't know. I think I was just sick of like feeling terrible every day and like having to constantly feel like I'm like always fighting something. And I just set the like goal and focus on enjoying the day and like doing things that make me feel better versus worse. So then I started to pay attention to like what types of movement and what types of food like worked out for me. And then I started doing those things and started seeing results. And it was like, oh, wow, I can do all this, like, despite all these limitations and stuff. And then it just kind of like kept going and my confidence kept building. And I think because I felt physically strong and was empowered like through that, it gave me the strength to like deal with all the emotional like background noise of MS, and like just processing and accepting is a whole different like beast.
Yes.
Yeah. And so it wasn't until I was like empowered through fitness where I felt like I really could like address that.
I
So
love that. Empowered through fitness. I
yeah,
absolutely love it because I think a lot of us, when you have this disease and like when it takes so much away from you, you lose that power, you lose that feeling of
totally.
control, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever feel like that? Like I'm
Oh
losing
yeah.
control. Yeah,
Yeah. Like it's terrible. I mean, those times are terrible when you feel like you don't have control of your body. And I mean, that happens frequently. So
for sure.
it's
Yeah,
hard.
I mean, have you gotten to a point where you're like, I don't know what I would do without my fitness routine or
Yeah.
working on that? Yeah.
Yeah. And like part of me, I'm really glad I'm at that point where like the consistency has just become like a habit. Uh, but I don't like that. Like I will get pretty cranky if I don't like move around, or if like I don't move around that much, then my pain is worse. Like it's hard to, I don't know, just I don't like relying on one thing that much. And with MS too, like and the fact that it could take away like your ability to move. Sometimes I'm like, am I putting too many eggs in one basket with fitness? But there's so many ways that you can like feel strong and empowered and do things and move that I feel like there's something for everyone, no matter what your fitness level is.
Mhm. As you're talking, a question just came about in my head. I have a few questions for you. I'm drilling
Yeah,
you.
do it.
Um, what has MS, there's this is two parts. What has it taken away from you and what has it given you?
Ooh. Um, I think it's given me like myself. Like I don't think I mean, I was diagnosed so young, I didn't really know who I was. And I think if I didn't have MS, I wouldn't have gotten into nutrition. I wouldn't have gotten into fitness. I wouldn't have like come to accept and like know who I am as a person and grow and develop in that way. So I think it's given me like my sense of self, um, and confidence. And I know, like, I'm sure a newly diagnosed person would be hearing that and being like, that is insane. So it took a really long time, but did get there. Taken from me, I don't know, the first thing I always think of is spontaneity. Like, I can't do anything like, it's hard to plan stuff. It's hard to be like, yeah, I'll definitely be like gardening and have a high activity day that day because who knows? And I know that's hard for like relationships and people and friends and stuff because I mean, it's kind of boring if you can't be spontaneous. And then it also like poses a lot of limitations that like healthy people in quotes don't need or have.
I love that too. Absolutely. The idea of like, oh, let's just get up and go and stay out all
Yeah.
day. That doesn't really exist. Not in my world.
No,
You
it's like, do I
know?
have my medicine? Do I have like what else do I need? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
Your
lot.
water, your depends, because
Right.
like for me, it's incontinence,
Yeah.
and like you don't want to be dehydrated, but then you want to be
Right.
hydrated too. And so there's just so much there.
Yeah.
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 Wow. And I love that you said what it's given you, it's like giving you a sense of self and knowing who you are. Because when you're diagnosed at an early age, I should say, a lot of times you don't know who you are. And then with the uncertainties of MS, there's so many changes. And like you don't even know who you are after an exacerbation. You might be a totally different person,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So true. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, it's constant changing and constant like reassessing where you are and grieving. Yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah. But then I like that you said grieving because it's like, well, who am I grieving? Because I was like a youthful, I was just a little thing. And so
Yeah.
was I grieving like my youth or am I grieving that? You know, I I feel like I guess I can answer this for myself. I feel like it took away a part of my like young adulthood, and like my idea of where my life was going. It just didn't go in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Was that hard for you to like constantly have to reevaluate and like grieve? Yeah.
Or I
Yeah.
still deal with it 21 years
Oh
later.
yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Every day I feel like, oh, okay. We're dealing with that now. Great.
Yes. Yeah. And the mood swings and like I love talking to you and other MSers because it's like you get it. You understand like last night, I have to be honest with you. I My son goes to school maybe like, I don't know, 30 minutes, 30 minutes away. And that's traffic. It's only 7 miles, but sometimes it takes an hour. And I was so exhausted because I live in Washington, D.C., and there's like a ton of traffic. And,
Yeah.
by the time we got home, I literally rushed in the door. I was like, oh my God, I have to pee. I have to use the restroom.
Yeah.
And so I rushed over my son. I was like, I just get out of my way. And I sat on the sofa and I was like laid out. And he's like, Mom, I'm done with my shower. I'm done with my homework. Maybe like an hour or so later, hour or two later. He's like, what's for dinner? And I was like, oh, that's right. You have to eat.
Yeah. Yeah. Same here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so my point is you are adjusting to the reality that you're not the same person. You know what I mean? As
Yeah.
like the day before or, months before, because your energy level. But like I'm the type of mom that does like usually dinner's like already made. I just yesterday I was so exhausted. And
Yeah.
I just couldn't move. And so people
Yeah.
like you and other MSers understand. And it's hard for
So-
like family and loved ones and or boyfriends, husbands, girlfriends, to understand. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's been hard this year. I feel like my husband and I are going through a little bit of an adjustment period because I mean, we're both under a lot of stress, but also with the way MS has just been a little bit more visible and like present, especially with energy levels. Like I used to cook like lunches and dinners for both of us like all the time. And I would do like the whole meal planning thing and everything. And now I just can't. Um, and I'll try to like like cook in bulk for the week, but lately that just hasn't been happening. And I know it's hard because that's also a way that like I show my husband I care about him and he feels cared for. And
Yeah.
then when that doesn't happen, it's hard like not to take it personally or not to just be like, God, it's MS again. Like it's been at MS for 15 years. Like this is annoying.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then it's hard. And then when he says that, I'm like, yeah, but dealing with it is way worse. Like, so then it's hard to like connect and sympathize with each other and show compassion.
It's hard to balance those emotions and those feelings because your feelings are very real and valid and his are as well. And
Yeah.
so to get in alignment with each other, like so that you're understanding and that he's speaking your language and you're speaking his language is really hard because MS just is a bully and it wants to stay there and it doesn't want to move,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, totally.
Uh,
Yeah, and then there's like, I don't know if you feel this too, but then I have guilt that it's like forcing MS on him kind of, especially like during the pandemic and him having to isolate more because I'm immunosuppressed because of Ocrevus. And it's like he's seeing other like healthy people just starting to kind of live their life again because they're vaccinated and it's okay. Um, and there's a lot of like, I don't know. It just I feel guilty about it because I know it's really hard for him. Yeah,
I
you can't do anything about it though. Then so
know.
it's hard
Yeah.
all
Oh, for
around.
sure. I was with my parents for a good portion of the pandemic, my son and I. And I'm glad that we were because I'm like, I want to make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, stay in quarantine and
Yeah,
okay. But
yeah,
my mom and dad, like anybody, they would tell people, you can't come to the house. Like it's just I'm sorry. Nobody can come, like other family members, nobody can come over.
yeah,
Yeah. It's hard.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I guess leading into, and maybe you kind of answered it just a bit, but do you view, and I've asked this question before in other episodes, in my older podcast, but do you view MS as a gift or a curse?
I think since I don't really know myself without it, and now I'm at the point where I can say, like, I don't know, I just don't know life without it. So I don't know if I even like would give it up if I had the option. Cause it just has like given me so much like strength and I don't know. Yeah, I would say gift. um just because I'm really like happy with how it has shaped me and the things that it's taught me, even though they have not been easy and it's been very ugly a lot of the time. But yeah, I don't think I would be who I am without it. So I have to say a gift. What do you feel? How do you feel?
I feel like it's a gift also. It and I've said it before too, because it doesn't allow me to hide. It's easy to
Mhm.
hide when you're kind of going about your life and you don't have anything to worry about. But yourself and you're healthy and your family's healthy. What and you have money in your pocket. Like what do I have to worry about? I can
Yeah.
hide, if something's wrong today, I can hide that. But MS, I can no longer hide. I have to, it's like it forced me to be vulnerable. It forced me to be transparent. And like you, I don't really know, even though at 25, like you're kind of developed, but you're not like fully developed because your brain
Yeah.
isn't like fully developed till like 26 or whatever. But I don't know who that was before. I don't even think I liked her before,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't think that I think the perspective that MS has given is just very unique because like it just puts you in a different headspace when things can be like taken away for no reason at
Yes.
any moment.
At any moment. Like you can go to sleep feeling one way and wake
Yeah.
up totally different. Yeah. Or go to a doctor and then they say, oh, you're partying too much. They told me that too. I was going to too many happy hours. And I thought that was the issue. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
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 Wow. See, that's why it's like I'm kind of grateful because it allows you to go deeper and like get in touch with
Totally.
yourself. You know what I mean? Like I never would have been, and I'm sure you could say the same thing. I never would have been as um vigilant with like how I eat and meal planning
Yes.
and fitness. Like I never would have like paid well, I even though I was like super active, I never would have paid as much attention to like body movement and stretching. You know what I mean? And eating right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely would not have been as high of a priority
Yes.
at all. Because
Sure.
those are like the few things I do to make myself feel like I am like controlling what I can with MS. And so, yeah, if I didn't have MS, I don't think I'd be working out or eating as well at all.
And I think you demonstrate that in your Instagram reels and your on your Instagram because you're like, hey, I can kick ass with MS in this world. And here I am. And I love that. I love that you show all of that. You know, you show your good days and your bad days because it's not a pretty disease. But some
Yeah,
days,
no.
some days you look pretty. Well, you look pretty all the time, but some days it is pretty, you know, and you can lift weights and a kettlebell, but
Oh,
other
yeah.
days you can't, you know?
Yep.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love
No, I gotta show everything. Because it otherwise, I mean, I don't want anyone that to get diagnosed with MS and think that it's all rainbows and butterflies because it like really isn't. And even like I think you talking about like the struggles and me sharing about it, like you still don't really understand until you go through it. But at least like knowing that they're going to happen, I think is really helpful for people that aren't as familiar with it.
And so I guess it leads me to another question for you. When you think back to 19-year-old Samantha, and then like 25-year-old Samantha, and 28-year-old, and then Samantha now, what what was one thing that you can think of? Has it been, or has it been multiple things? What frightened you? Like upon diagnosis, what frightened you? And then at each milestone or step that you've overcome or something. I shouldn't even say overcome, but I don't know what the word is, cog, or each stage that you've gotten to, like
Yeah.
what has frightened you about MS?
Yeah. I think initially when I was diagnosed, I was scared I was going to be in a wheelchair because I did like this thing everyone does after they get diagnosed where they Google and it's like you see all these wheelchairs and you're just like thinking like, oh my God, that would be terrible. But now it's like, no, that would be fine. Like if that like that wouldn't be like my first choice, probably, but like it'd be fine.
Yes.
Um, so I think initially I had like that fear that was kind of like not valid. And then trying to think. I think as I like cycled through medicines, got to a point where it was like I had gone through all the injectables and there weren't that many pills on the market yet. And so I was worried, I think in my like late 20s that I was running out of medicine options. And it was like, oh, what am I going to do? Like, what if I have to stay on this medicine that we know I'm just having like relapses on? And what is that going to look like for the future? Um, and then I think, Trying to think like the next, probably in my like younger 30s, like a few years ago, um, was when I started noticing more of like the ways the fact that I had MS for like 10 or 12 years at that point, like the way now that it was affecting things, like how, it's getting old in my marriage, that the MS is like always a thing. It's like a third person, and it's just like annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah, and then just having like all the small things and relapses like kind of keep adding up on top of each other, and seeing your abilities change like naturally is challenging. It makes you like worried about the future. um I went through like a whole it's fine now, but it was like a whole journey when COVID happened, like initially, and started because it was like I was on Ocrevus, I still am, and that is one that they say you're immunosuppressed on, and you have to be very careful. And I was already nervous to go on it because of the immunosuppression. And so then when the pandemic happened, it was like, great, this is like my biggest fear. Yay.
Yeah.
um,
Like, I need one other thing to be worried about.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you
Yeah.
like are seeing how much people don't care. And it, it's hard to like put into words because you don't want it to affect you, but then when you see like how people are so blatantly like doing things that could be very harmful for someone with like a suppressed immune system, it just makes you question your like value and worth and humanity in a whole different way. So that took like a while to get through.
Oh yeah.
But now I'm not as frightened. I think I've made it through some pretty big struggles over the past few years. And so I have more faith that I can continue to make it through big stuff, because the things that have happened I didn't think I'd be okay from, and I'm fine.
So I guess the last question I have for you is, how has MS strengthened you?
Mm, I think it's put me in touch with my body, like, which I think is something more people need. And so I consider it like a strength because I just feel like more connected and in tune with like what's going to help and hurt, and just like how to treat myself with love and like respect. So, yeah, I think it's strengthened like my relationship to myself and my body. But
Fantastic.
God,
It's
it's doozy.
no, I love that because a lot of times you don't feel, again, going back to the control issue, you don't feel like you have control because your body's kind of betraying you. And then you
Yeah.
give up all of this information to your doctor, and your doctor takes control of your body. You know what I mean? Or your
Right.
medical team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
So that's beautiful. Yeah, to
Thanks.
reach that point. That's so good. Oh my gosh. Well,
I
thank
mean,
you so much. But go ahead.
yeah.
I'm sorry. Uh-huh.
Oh, I was gonna ask, like, do you think, in what ways has it strengthened you?
Oh boy. What was it?
Or is it more frightening?
No, it hasn't frightened me. It's strengthened me because, like, I'm able to fight more, if that makes sense.
Ooh,
Like,
yeah.
that's how, like, and I think the more you fight and the more you, like, challenge yourself, that's where my strength has come, because I'm like, okay, I can't do this today, but I'm going to try it tomorrow. And so, in that sense, it has strengthened me through those challenges that I face like each day. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, that's awesome.
So, yeah, I guess it's not all bad. It's not all great either, and gravy and
Yeah.
flowers.
I know, it's like hit me in the middle of a relapse, like after I've been on steroids, and
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
tell you something way different, but right now it's
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah. If you would have asked me yesterday, I've been like, no, I want to kick MS and its ass and everybody else in my way
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now.
Yep, I know that feeling.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Mm.
Um, I'm really super happy and grateful that you gave your time and your energy and shared your story. And I can't thank you enough. Like I said, you are truly like my fitness inspiration. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. And I mean, you know how important and like just how much of a game changer like you have been in my life with the your first podcast. I mean, that is when I first really started to feel like I wasn't alone and that the things I was feeling were valid. And so I'm like forever grateful for that because it allowed me to embrace myself in a completely different way.
Thank
So
you. That means a
thank you.
lot. That really does. Like sometimes I'd be like reading, I'm like, oh my God, oh, this is so good, because you do feel isolated and alone. And that was hard for me to like kind of grasp onto, thinking that I'm not alone here. There's other people that are going through similar challenges and issues, and just talk about it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And they don't try to fix it or invalidate it. It's just like, yeah, I hear you. That happens to me too. And that sucks. Like it's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where can people find you, and how can people reach out, like a newly diagnosed person, let's say, wants to learn about fitness?
Yeah, yeah. So my Instagram and TikTok, I'm probably the most active on. That is the handle is SLSALVAGGIO. It's SLS Salvaggio. It's my maiden name. I don't say it as much anymore, hence the pause and needing to spell it. And then I am working on my website, and I should have that up by the time this is recorded, hopefully. So that is samanthasalvaggio.com. Um, and yeah, just shoot me a message on Instagram or through the website or TikTok. I'm very like open about everything and I love talking to people about it. So I'm here.
Or follow her on Instagram. It's amazing. I haven't seen you on TikTok because I don't really go on TikTok. It's my brain gets on overload. I can't do Twitter or TikTok, anything, and really Facebook anymore. So
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, and I'll put all of that in the show notes, and so people can find you, and then just so it's out there in the world. Like the more the merrier. There's space for all of us, and I think you make a difference and I make a difference, and we all kind of collectively make a difference, and I
Yes.
love sharing that space with you. So thank
Thank you.
you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, totally feel the same way. Thank you to you as well. Yay.